So what's up guys, I am BlackOpsAmazing, welcome back to another zombies video on the channel, another Q&A taking your questions from the comment section below to do with the storyline, Easter eggs, whatever you want. It doesn't even have to be to do with zombies sometimes. Eli, what are you saying? Anyway, if you enjoyed today's video as always, drop a like rating. Of course you don't have to if you don't want to, but could we shoot for 1K likes on this video? Make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest ones, and of course we'll see you all in the next video. That's the end. What? Let's get into it. So the first question of today from Cross Colindrez, is that your name, dude? I am so sorry if that's wrong. But you say, in Origins in the intro cutscene, why do we see Richtofen cutting open Maxis' head? And then your second question is, at the end of Gorod Karovi, who is Nikolai referring to when he says before she was taken from us? So we know in 1918 Origins, when Group 935 was doing work at the dig site, discovering element 115, creating the generators, the giant robots. During all of this time, when Group 935 first discovered 115, as we know, when you come into contact with that element, it can begin to do things to you. It has side effects on you. Some of them are memory loss, and we see examples of that in the Giant, with Richtofen, Takeo, Nikolai, and Dempsey. We know it can also turn you into zombies, but in this case, in Maxis' case in Origins, because he'd been exposed to 115 so much, it began to turn Maxis crazy. And as we know, throughout Origins, just after discovering 115, he began to hear the voice of his daughter Samantha talking to him. And so a lot of people, including Richtofen, thought that Maxis was going crazy. And soon enough, Maxis was rendered catatonic due to element 115. And because of this, Richtofen had no choice but to kill him and remove his brain. Element 115 made Maxis basically unresponsive. He wasn't himself, and so Richtofen, being afraid that he could die or turn into a zombie, he wanted to save Maxis, and the only way he could do this was by taking his brain out of his body and preserving it in a jar, to then later on put it inside of a drone. And so that's the reason why we see Richtofen cutting open Maxis' head in the Origins intro. He wasn't doing it in an evil way, he did it to save Maxis from turning into a zombie, and so cut out his brain to preserve it. You have to remember that in Origins, Richtofen wasn't this evil guy that we know him as when he was older. In his earlier days in Origins, he was actually good and worried for Maxis, as they were both great friends, and so did this to save him. And then your second question was, in the ending for Gorod Karovi, who was Nikolai referring to when he said before she was taken from us, and he was talking about his wife.
You know what I speak of. You remember. Before the bombs fell, before she was taken from us, some things are forgotten for a reason.
It sounds like from what Nikolai is telling us that his wife died in a bombing raid, and as a result, Nikolai turned to vodka. To heal himself, to forget about what he'd lost, to try and forget about his wife that was taken from him, he turned to vodka, and that is the reason why he drinks. Anyway, the next question from Timothy George says, hey BOA, do you think it's possible that Dr. Monty was bluffing about killing the premise crew? Maybe he needed them to continue the cycle of events in a way they thought that it was their own idea. And that's interesting because that's a different way of looking at the Revelations ending. That's something I've never really thought about. We can see in the ending Dr. Monty is about to kill our characters, or should I say wipe them from existence. He makes them disappear. We start to see them fade away, and then suddenly he changes his mind and instead decides that it's better to send them to a different point in space and time, or basically send them back to B Primus. But what if that was Monty's plan all along? What if Dr. Monty all along was planning to send them back to B Primus? He was never gonna kill them, but to make it seem like it was their idea, he pretended he was gonna wipe them from existence, so he could have an excuse as to why he sent them back to B Primus. If they ever asked the question as to why he sent them back there, he could just say, well, it was your idea, I was gonna kill you, but you said you could just send us somewhere else, and so that's what I did. Instead of explaining why, he could say that. I mean, there's loads of different ways we can look at the Revelations ending. We still really don't know what it actually means. The way I look at it right now is the same as the Origins ending 3 years ago. What was it, 4 years ago now? 5? Whenever Black Ops 2 came out for Origins, the first time we saw that ending cutscene, we all thought that it meant something totally different. We thought that the whole zombie storyline was made up by these two children, that we were just playing roles in their heads. And then as it turned out 3 years later, it meant something totally different. So that's the way I look at the Revelations ending. As of right now, we just see it as Dr. Monty, instead of killing us, wiping us from existence, has just sent us back to be Primus. That's how we look at it right now, but I'm thinking that we're going to be totally wrong. When it comes to it, in November when Black Ops 4 comes out, or whatever it's going to be called, I think we're actually going to find out that this Revelations ending means something totally different to what we think. And so for that reason, I'm not really sure what's going on, but that's definitely an interesting way of looking at it. Maybe Dr. Monty was pretending to kill us, he was never going to do it, and he wanted the characters to say, well, can't you just send us somewhere else, so he would have an excuse. But who knows, that's just a theory. The King of 638 says, why are there body bags hanging from the ceiling in Mob of the Dead? I always get a lot of people asking me this. It's actually quite a popular question for I'm not really sure why. I've never thought there's anything behind it, and I still don't think there is. Mob of the Dead, of course, is a map that's supposed to resemble hell. It is stuck in purgatory, in the afterlife. There are references to the devil and Satan all throughout this map. It is a scary atmosphere, and so I've always just thought these body bags are there to make this prison more scary. There's not really a story behind it. I mean, you could say maybe these are prisoners that were here and were killed and maybe hung by the gods. You could try and come up with some story behind this, but of course it's not explained to us anywhere. As I said, the only possible reason behind it really could be that these must have been prisoners that were killed and hung. But I'm not sure, I've never really looked into it. Jesse says, BOA, I need you to answer this question. Does Maxis die in Revelations when the Shadow Man takes over his body? Love your vids. And the answer to that would be no. Well, technically not. When Maxis goes down into the basement in the house and he picks up the summoning key, as we know, the Shadow Man is trapped in there. He picks up the summoning key and then it's almost like the Shadow Man and Maxis swap positions. Maxis gets sucked up inside of the summoning key and the Shadow Man gets released from the summoning key, meaning Maxis is now trapped inside of it and the Shadow Man is now free to wander and cause havoc in Monty's perfect universe. So Maxis didn't exactly die, he just became trapped in the summoning key, and we see at the end of the Revelations Easter egg in this cutscene, Maxis is inside of the summoning key, he's trapped inside of it, he's talking to Sophia, and both him and Sophia sacrifice themselves to save Monty's perfect universe. They fly up into the Apothecan sun and kind of like blow it up. They get rid of it. So no, Maxis didn't die, he became trapped inside of the key and then used that to his advantage by sacrificing himself to save the children. Kurt Jorgensen says, does the map Buried itself take place during the time of Primus? Again, something I've never thought about. Now, the map is actually called Resolution 1295, so judging by that, I'm going to assume that this map, this town Buried, comes from the year 1295, from the 1300s, and, as we know, Primus was alive, or they defeated the Apothecans during the Great War, in 1299, just 4 years after the date of Buried. And also remember that on the year 1318, due to temporal rifts being created, Arthur was teleported to Resolution 1295 in 2025 Angola. So with that, it does seem like Buried is a town that was around, that was maybe thriving and had people living in it during the time of Primus. During the time of the Great War began in 1292 and ended in 1299. Buried was a town that was active during that time. Obviously, it's an old western town, so we can assume its original location was the Old West. Was part of the Great War happening in the Old West, maybe? Did the war between Primus and the Apothecans have an effect on Buried? Because, as I said, Buried was a town that comes from the years that the Great War was happening, which is something that's really interesting to think about. Yet in that map we don't really see any evidence of the Apothecans that were alive during that time. Like I said, maybe they just weren't around in that location, but still you'd think that maybe Treyarch could have added in some Easter eggs to show that the Apothecans were having a war during this time. I don't know, that's really interesting. Portal Corner says, BOA, if there's ever a zombie outbreak, would you use your COD knowledge or Walking Dead knowledge? I don't watch The Walking Dead. I assume what you're asking me is, would you use your COD zombies knowledge in an actual zombie outbreak? I don't know how useful that would be. I don't think we have magic stuffs that I could use or some wonder weapons. Have we got like a ray gun I can actually use? I mean, there's probably one of them out there. I don't think we have teleporters. I'm not going to be good with the Great Escape. I don't know how actual training zombies in real life's got to go. Probably not too well. And also, I'm not Richtofen, and I am not that good. I'd probably be scared. I would run away. I don't think that's going to help. Anyway, guys, there we go. That is it for today's video. Hopefully you have all enjoyed. Of course, if you have, drop a like rating. That would be very much appreciated. You don't have to if you don't want to. Make sure you are subscribed, though, if you want to stay updated with the latest content on the channel. Leave your comments in the comment section below, and we'll see you all in the next one. Thank you, and goodbye.